Alright, let's bust this bad boy down. Everspace 2 was one of those games for me. It came included in a bundle with a game I was interested in buying. The previews looked cool enough, so I bought the bundle. It then proceeded to sit in my Steam library for multiple months. That is, however, not overly relevant to today's story. What is relevant to today's story is to be upfront about my biases. I adore space games. In particular, I love open-ended space games that let me explore at my own pace. Of note, I've sunk more hours into No Man's Sky and X4 than I care to admit due to their open-ended exploration, and in the case of X4, interesting economic simulation that your actions directly impact. What I'm not the biggest fan of is arcade space shooters, and unfortunately that's what I had taken Everspace 2 for by accident. After buying the game, I watched the previews and I thought it was visually interesting, but not really the type of game I'd be overly interested in playing myself. And surprise, surprise, I was completely wrong in the end, because apparently I don't even know my own taste, nor do I read the tags on Steam. I'd like to make one thing clear first. Everspace 2 does have some arcade space shooter DNA, but the game is much closer to being an action RPG along the lines of Diablo more than anything else. That is to say, your basic gameplay loop is traveling to new areas, clearing out hordes of enemies, and scooping up as much loot as you can to upgrade your ship and be able to challenge bigger, tougher enemies. You're not in endless combat or continually being shuffled through a story as I had originally thought, and you have a lot of agency to decide what you feel like doing once you get out of the initial introduction portion of the main quest. Let's break it down a little bit, and I'm not going to spoil anything about the story as I'm not even done it myself. To be completely upfront with you, I'm only about 10 hours into the game, so we're basing this on my first 10 hours only. We're going to exclusively dive into how the game functions as a whole, and you can decide from there whether it's something you think you'd be interested in or not. The story, to the point I've played so far at least, is enjoyable, and actually the voice acting is really good. However, you'll spend a lot of your time doing things outside of that if you want to keep up with the level progression and difficulty. Speaking of difficulty, I'm actually playing the game on easy because it's my unwinding after work game. This still poses a bit of a challenge in over-leveled areas, but generally it leads to a much more casual experience. The good news is Everspace 2 has a ton of different difficulty options, so if you're looking for more of a challenge that tests your abilities, you'll be able to make that happen for yourself for sure. There's no correct way to approach the game, and as an increasingly old man with a decreasing amount of free time, I appreciate the flexibility in this regard quite a lot. If I'm not mistaken, there's a level below easy, then there's normal, and then there's hard, and then there's very hard. So you can kind of fine tune it to be what you want it to be. As for the gameplay loop itself, as you explore the galaxy moving between various areas for the main story, you'll start to see bits of side content pop up and ping around you in space. Distress signals to rescue other vessels from bad situations for a good credit payout, unknown signals that often contain opportunities for resource gathering, and undiscovered sites which are often puzzles or more difficult combat challenges for high quality loot. Unlike most ARPGs, you don't encounter that much combat while simply traveling around between main quest locations. In fact, jump traveling in Everspace 2 is incredibly peaceful and safe. With that in mind, stopping to do these extra bits of content becomes imperative if you want to keep up with the level curve of the game and find good loot. This is going to be your primary means of becoming more powerful, as finding weapons, armor, and ship components of increasing rarities with different stat modifiers is the easiest way to modify your build. If this sounds familiar, it's because it's a very standard ARPG loop. It's like finding weapons and armor in Diablo. You're keeping a continual eye open for good loot and upgrading components as you go to make sure your build keeps up with the game. That's the core focus of the gameplay loop, and actually it works incredibly well in space. Beyond that, completing undiscovered site puzzles and combat challenges rewards you with mainframe components that allow you to increase your ship's stats. Stats primarily increase as you level up, but this provides a secondary way for you to tweak and improve your build as you move through the game, and is very much worth doing. You can also straight up change ships as well by visiting a shipyard in the game. As with No Man's Sky and X4, there are various ship classes that are better suited to particular situation over others. However, I've not bothered with this yet myself. I find the scout class ship you start with to be super useful due to its maneuverability and speed. It is nice that it's an option though, and one that you're introduced to fairly early on in the game. If you don't like the initial ship, it's only a few hours until you arrive at the shipyard and get presented alternatives. The docking location with the shipyard also has a variety of side quest jobs available, so it's a good place to grind money if you don't have quite enough credits to acquire what you want yet. In addition to these jobs, there are also side quests that trigger periodically in various locations. These are shorter than the main quest obviously, but significantly longer than the bulletin board jobs you might pick up at a station. They're also generally worth doing, as Everspace 2 will quickly outpace you if you only stick to the main objectives. I've found that most of the side content is a lot of fun, and it naturally slides into the gameplay loop as well. Like doing a seek and destroy job or a side quest tends to come with a lot of combat, and chances are if I'm trying to find loot, I'm seeking out combat anyways, so it's worth the time investment because they kind of hold hands and play nicely together in that sense. I suppose I should talk about the actual combat as well. It's fun. It's actually really fun. That might even be an understatement. It's probably my favorite space combat of any like-minded game I play. The inclusion of ARPG elements like ultimate abilities and skills that you can switch around, along with your primary and secondary weapons being super interchangeable, gives you a lot of control in how your ship fights. The combat generally feels fair even on more challenging difficulties, and it can be a ton of fun to fight your way out of bad situations while attempting to rescue a freighter or a stranded ship, though you can generally handle most situations using a combination of your primary and secondary weapons. Having these other options available, it really enables you to bite off more than you can chew at times without it being too much of a problem. It's snappy, it's responsive, and generally it's a great time. This is important too because you're going to be spending so much time in combat grinding for loot and materials that it better be a good gameplay experience, because that is the bulk of what you're going to be doing, and it is very fun. I like it a lot. Gathering materials is super important in a way beyond making your ship stronger as well. As you meet characters in the main story who eventually end up joining your crew, using materials to upgrade the perks they offer can make your experience way more user-friendly. Generally, one character will be geared towards one specific area of the gameplay experience, and you can upgrade them to have a bit better of a time with that. For example, upgrading Dax, the first character you get, can help lessen the burden of having to pay for continual repairs of your ship when you find yourself damaged. You also get perk choices for your own character as well, getting the opportunity to select a new perk every 5 levels until you hit the cap of 30 in the game, and leveling is fairly slow as well, so the cap's not going to sneak up on you. You'll have plenty of time to decide and make sure your character is growing the way you want them to. Oh, as another aside that talking about combat just made me think of, I'd like to talk about motion sickness as well. As I mentioned initially, I love space games, but one of my biggest downfalls with playing them is that I tend to get dizzy and suffer from motion sickness relatively easily. I don't know if it's because I'm playing it in third-person perspective, but Everspace 2 has not made me motion sick even once. Not even when I played it for 4 hours while I was sick the other day. That's not something that I can even say about No Man's Sky and X4, which do make me motion sick sometimes. It seems to be fairly gentle if you suffer from that sort of issue, but I do think it's something to be aware of as well that could potentially cause you issues if that's something you struggle with in games. Other than that, Everspace 2 has many of your favorite ARPG tropes. You can sell things at stores, you can break them down for upgrade components, you can craft things, though this seems to be kind of unimportant, and you can even put new stats on an item with their own version of enchanting or socketing. Everything you could ever want is there, but it's presented in a really unique way that I don't think I've seen before. I don't think there are that many other space ARPGs out there, but this one executed on the idea pretty much perfectly for me. We've made it to the end of the video, and I haven't even really told you why I like the game yet. I've only really told you what's there. Beyond all these things that I think are positives, the biggest thing that sold me on playing Everspace 2 is how the game is portioned into bite-sized chunks. I'm a busy person. I don't always have time to play games for hours at a time, and that's just part of life, really. Luckily, Everspace 2 is the type of game where you can jump in for 20 or 30 minutes at a time. It doesn't actually take that long to clear out undiscovered sites or explore a site for the sake of the story. The game also lets you save at most times, so it's easy to jump out without losing progress if something comes up. I find that ARPGs, though one of my favorite genres, can also be extremely unfriendly to players who, let's say, like to touch grass more than others. With that in mind, Everspace 2 being so user-friendly sold me on the experience, and I've been playing it in my own time for most of the month. If you're someone else who finds yourself in this same type of situation often, this might be one for you. I'd suggest looking into it. It's a really good time. Bit of a lighter video this week, but that's it for today. If you enjoy the channel, please consider subscribing. We're doing like game reviews and kind of game stories on this one. If you didn't, that's fine. Whatever, man. I don't care. Have yourselves a good rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.